Good morning and welcome to Judging by the Cover, the gaming review show where I rate games that I have not played and I score them based on the store pages. Now, as a quick heads up for how we're going to go through this, the trailers that are available on Steam give us more than 40 curated showcases to get through, and for the sake of time, I am actually going to go ahead and just let them play out while we go through our presentation today. And I'll go into some quick highlights of things that ticked my brain as we get into that section of the review. But for anyone interested who might actually have a couple hours to spare, I would recommend going through them at your leisure because there is some cool things to note, which we will talk about later. First off, we're going to be diving right in to wrap up Space Month. And for that, we are looking at possibly one of the biggest games that I have reviewed on this series, No Man's Sky by Hello Games. Now, Hello Games does have a little bit of an interesting history that I briefly looked at, dating to, I believe it was around 2010 with the game Joe Danger. Joe Danger, where some people had left EA being dissatisfied with the constant workload of cranking out just sequel after sequel after sequel. They wanted to make something different and unique and wanted to go ahead and play off with some of the ideas that they had for games they wanted to work on. And that's where that came from. Fast forward to August of 2016, and No Man's Sky comes out. Now, I do recall No Man's Sky having a bit of a shaky launch and poor reception. As I am aware, it was largely due to a failure on delivering some of the game's promised features. And honestly, I can see these being very valid complaints leading up to its release, especially as the game did face delays that pushed its launch back from their original goals on the development team. However, we are here to review what the game has to show us today through the Steam and other online store pages. Fortunately, since 2016, the game has undergone massive updates in service to its community of players. Now, without getting into too much of a deep dive into the history of the studio, I can be certain that the developers were absolutely experienced in making games, so it's not like these are newbies getting their first foray in the industry. They did come from one of the largest publishers, EA, but with the previous games being a Daredevil simulator with some level creation, No Man's Sky does seem to be a bit of a massive jump in ambition from that first title. So it's no wonder that they seem to maybe overpromise and have a little too much ambition with what they could reasonably expect of themselves to create in the time that they gave. And that's not to say anything negative about them. I certainly do admire the ambition and the drive to go and see your vision realized like that. And that said, I am genuinely pleased to see that the poor initial reception did not ruin the studio and that they could continue to improve on what they started to see their vision realized. Not only that, but after No Man's Sky, they did seem to offer additional support to get other games published. There is another one under their label that seems to have been worked on by a small pocket of their staff, with The Last Campfire. I've seen that one here and there, and it looks like a neat little indie game title. So it does seem that they are supportive of their fellow developers and them seeing their vision and their creations come to life as well. With that, I do also see a little bit of a note, and they do highlight it a little bit in the trailers too, where they talk about Light No Fire, which talks of higher ambition than what we had with No Man's Sky, but maybe with some better tempered expectations of themselves and from the community for what to reasonably expect with that launch. Honestly, hopefully they have something good come out of it because from what I've seen so far, it is looking good. Now, again, without getting it too deep into it, No Man's Sky did have that heavy criticism, at least At the time, it did seem that way. I was online at the time, and I did see a little bit of that back and forth. Though I did not personally engage in that discourse because I did not purchase or play, and I was not involved with No Man's Sky. Just because people always have to choose how they spend their money and time. Even though this looks like absolutely something I would have spent money on, but I can see that the way some of the major criticisms were floating around about that and how they boasted how their algorithm, their procedural generation could create multiple quintillions of planets, but in order for it to do so, those planets have to be populated with assets and creature formations and textures that the developers put into the game for it to pull from to piece those worlds together the way a Minecraft world does when it generates. So when you have a Minecraft world, you know that it is one world that is generating. So for it to be a bit more cohesive, even with the hard biome lines in between some areas, it kind of makes sense how that lays out. Whereas with No Man's Sky being an entire universe and dozens or hundreds of planets generating within that universe, I could see where that criticism came from, where they couldn't necessarily release the game with the kind of biodiversity that one might expect in that kind of setting. To which I say it's a very fair analysis to have that skepticism. Fortunately, Hello Games did seem to foresee this and made sure to include systems in their game that would allow for new assets to be added and generated into their universe as they continue to update the game. And boy, did they update the game. I said before, they have over 40 trailers in here. Pretty much every single one of them is a trailer that is highlighting one of those updates. And mind you, that's like more than 30 different updates, I believe. If I were to go down the whole list, I even peeked at Wikipedia just to see, like, okay, what's the entire list of updates? Now, this game has been out just a little under 10 years. And it has had that many updates, which means they have had multiple updates push out for this, adding ships, creatures, biomes, environments, expanding the gameplay, missions, factions, large scale, small scale, alternate universes. They have had so much go into this multiple times per year since its launch. That is a pretty massive undertaking for what they have given to their players for the kind of price that they're asking. Yes, it released at $60, which that's a AAA game price right there. But given what we see in the game, I can see very well how it earned that $60 price tag for the amount of time that players can reasonably expect to get out of it, especially now, 10 years after its launch, and with them continuously putting out more updates, more content, and more variety into it. It is astounding, especially when you see it on sale. Now, I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the store description first before we circle back to those trailers. Inspired by the adventure and imagination that we love from classic science fiction, No Man's Sky presents you with a galaxy to explore filled with unique planets and life forms and constant danger and action. In No Man's Sky, every star is the light of a distant sun, each orbited by planets filled with life, and you can go to any of them you choose. Fly smoothly from deep space to planetary surfaces with no loading screens and no limits. In this infinite procedurally generated universe, you'll discover places and creatures that no other players have seen before and perhaps never will again. Now, going back up to what we were saying earlier, that is a huge thing to promise, and I don't think that was what is even updated from its original release. I don't have a timeline of when this page would have been updated, but it does seem like the kind of thing that's like it's an incredibly ambitious thing to promise, and saying that nobody else has seen this before. I could see that possibly being true with the generation, because procedural generation is not new to games. World randomization is not new to video games. There are plenty of older games that have level randomization and things that have been expanded into the 3D worlds. But at the same time, there's only so far that those things can go when they pull from a certain pool of assets to create those worlds. But of course, like I said, there have been numerous updates, tons of them, like more frequently than I've seen with even other large games like this, like Minecraft. And now including play with all major updates since launch. Okay, here we go. They're putting the list right here in the description. Foundation, Pathfinder, Atlas Rises, Next, The Abyss, Vision, the 2.0 Beyond update, Synthesis, Living Ship, Exomech, Desolation, and the 3.0 update, Origins, Next Generation, Companions, Expeditions, Prisms, Frontiers, Sentinel, Outlaws, Endurance, Waypoint, Fractor, Interceptor, Echoes, Omega, Orbital, Worlds Part 1, Worlds Part 2, Relics, Beacon, Voyagers, Remnant, Xeno Arena, and the Swarm. Well, the fact that the Swarm is loaded in there in this, it seems that they have been keeping this updated for the current release. And now with added cross save, No Man's Sky now supports crossplay and cross save between a huge number of platforms, including PC, PlayStation 4 and 5, 5 Pro, Xbox One, and Series XS, Game Pass, GOG, Nintendo Switch, Steam Deck, PlayStation VR 1 and 2, and PC VR. Available for PC and Mac, see recommended and minimum specs for details. An epic voyage to the center of a shared universe awaits, allowing you to explore, trade, fight, and survive alone or with friends. So, I know one of the big hallmarks of the criticism that lined up for it was they promised multiplayer and it did not deliver at launch, but apparently not too long after that they did get the multiplayer worked out so that you could play with friends, and I don't have an exact timeline for that, but based on the trailers and how the trailers are basically showing in reverse order, you do see the multiplayer aspect of the game through a huge number of those trailers, including the early ones. You embark on an epic voyage. At the center of the galaxy lies an irresistible pulse, which draws you on a journey toward it to learn the true nature of the cosmos. But facing hostile creatures and fierce pirates, you'll know that death comes at a cost, and survival will be down to the choices you make over how you upgrade your ship, your weapon, and suit. Find your own destiny. Your voyage through No Man's Sky is up to you. Will you be a fighter preying on the weak and taking their riches, or taking out pirates for their bounties? Power is yours if you upgrade your ship for speed and weaponry, or a trader. Find rich resources on forgotten worlds and exploit them for the highest prices. Invest in more cargo space and you'll reap huge rewards. Or perhaps an explorer. Go beyond the known frontier and discover places and things that no one has ever seen before. Upgrade your engines to jump ever farther and strengthen your suit for survival in toxic environments that would kill the unwary. And you share your journey. The galaxy is a living, breathing place. Trade convoys travel between stars, factions vie for territories, pirates hunt the unwary, and the police are ever watching. Every other player lives in the same galaxy, and you can choose to share your discoveries with them on a map that spans known space. Perhaps you will see the results of their actions as well as your own. Now, one thing that I do wonder about that, like if you do want to play alone and not with people, is it possible to just kind of play in a little isolated universe where you just kind of explore in a single player environment? Or is the universe at large just absolutely affected by all the players? Do or does the game like reset the universe at times? Like how does that go about? I'm wondering. Because I do have a concern where as long as the game has been up and available, how much of that unlimited universe is really like untouched by other players? It leaves a little bit to me to be questioned for that. At least with the way that it's described. Now, back up, just moving back up along here. We're going to do a quick talk about the trailers. There's also the screenshots, which I'm not going to get too into the screenshots because they do just showcase a lot of the a lot of the things that are also in those trailers, and we're just going to hit the highlights here. So we have the Swarm update teaser, which shows a bunch of bug-like creatures coming at you. Then there's the Xeno Arena, which adds functionally it's adding Pokemon battles to No Man's Sky. The second most recent update to No Man's Sky is Pokemon battles. Do with that what you will. Oh, and it's also complete with pet log and genetic modification. So, make sure you get out there and complete your intergalactic Pokedex. Right? Then there was the version 6.2 Remnant, which boasts a gravity gun and cargo vehicles. Breach has a new salvage expedition with some shipwrecks being expanded on, providing new resources and mechanisms. Voyager's Deep Dive has you. There's two. Okay, the Voyager's one has a couple of trailers. There's a deep dive and then an actual trailer. The developer does give us a very heartfelt look into how they think of the ships and the environments and the gameplay experience with your friends. And they even touch on how the development of Light No Fire works in tandem with the continuation and advancement of No Man's Sky, and how it's kind of like not a testing ground, but I guess kind of a showcase for the things that they're working on so that they can keep that going with their community in a way that lets them play that, so that they can see how the games are maybe not interconnected, but how they're inspired by each other. The Voyager's trailer does give just the more emphasis on the ships and the traveling. Beacon has a little bit of a information for a settlement overhaul with villages to discover, develop, lead, protect. You can. It does have me wondering how exactly the settlements work while you're off world. I know games like Minecraft pretty much function where it only runs, like an area around you will only run and process if you are within range of it. And they do that like with the world's chunks. I don't know if No Man's Sky works on the same premise, especially if it's a shared universe. So, like, if you have a settlement, does that settlement continue to function and operate while you're away from the settlement? And can other players like mess with it and interact with it? Or again, does this go back to that single player environment where you have to be online and or close enough to the settlement in order for it to be processing? That's just kind of a question that's left up in the air in my head. The Beacon, that's okay. That's that settlement overhaul. Relics has an expansion of archaeology with uncovering fossils, filling museums, and unleashing ancient technology for some lore because everybody loves lore in their games. There's the World's Part 2 deep dive where the developer narrates for a little bit more on a bit of a longer showcase this time, talking about some of the features where they expanded on terrain, planets, and goals, expeditions, missions. The world's updates do seem to be a just absolute massive overhauls to the biodiversity, which helps to fill in that lacking feeling that dates back from the early days of the game's criticism. And this was this and that trailer going in order was the world's part 2 update. There's also, so that was a deep dive. Then there's a world part 2 update trailer that talks about the solar systems, gas giants, increased terrain variety, new biomes, lighting and water physics improvements, and deeper oceans. So, a Subnautica crossover could be kind of cool. That there's nothing about a Subnautica crossover, is just kind of a thought in my head. There was a cross save trailer, which just showcases a whole bunch of screens surrounded by all the consoles that have the cross save stuff going on. There's a trailer about a Mass Effect crossover with some mission and fleet management that appears to be shown in a short little showcase boasting the Normandy SR1, which I am not very well versed in Mass Effect, but for people who are, it's a great little Easter egg for them. There's The Cursed, which has some darker narration. In fact, that narration that's on that trailer seems to be recycled quite a bit through the trailers. They do show some of the otherworldly stuff going on, yes, even in the context of alien planets, giving a bit of an Eldritch or Lovecraftian vibe with new ships, conflicts, portals, and boss fights. The Aquarius expansion shows a little bit of what looks like cozy gaming with fishing, diving, cooking, and some completion checklists. Then it gets to the world's part 1 deep dive and trailer, which was the 5.0 update apparently. Like the last Worlds update, or rather future world update, touches on not only the update to the environments about wildlife, but the sheer emotion behind it that the developer has is actually kind of contagious. That really kind of lends into the whole idea that this game was basically their child, like their brainchild that they really wanted to share with the world. There's a total. It does tell us that the world's part 1 update had a bit of a had a universal reset for the players. So if it is the kind of always online world that all players are always sharing, then having a thing here showing that okay, it did reset at one point in time, it could possibly reset at another future point in time, maybe with another future worlds update that just kind of throws that into the mix. That way, I guess that would probably make it easier to handle the universe and the procedural generation, considering like how would you have that manage previously discovered worlds. I know in other games, I know I've mentioned the Minecraft a couple of times, where with that one, if you have a world save and you've explored like huge areas of the map and then a major update comes out that adds biomes and adds new things, you have to actually explore new chunks of the world in order to see those. Anything that was previously explored is basically saved and locked into the world, and then that can cause like some weird splitting with the world. And I know like the one update where they raised and where they like changed the upward and lower limit to how high or low into the world you could go, it created some weird stuff. So it was highly recommended like people do new saves or at least like move far off from your original home base or something for those things. Um, so with this one doing a similar kind of thing with massive world overhauls and basically just being like, all right, universe resets now. And of course, people who maybe have like other customization options would probably get to keep those options as they get back to their unlocking points. But again, it kind of puts the players on a bit of an even field with that kind of a reset. Then the Adrift trailer shows an abandoned universe without any help from other sentient life. It looks like it creates a bit of an isolated experience with a ghastly mystery to uncover. And that one actually sounds like it could have been a cool, like it sounds like the kind of thing that would be a spin-off game, but it's still within No Man's Sky as part of its singular existing universe and singular existing world lore. Orbital shows an overhaul of space stations, shops, and all sorts of other stuff with variety based on the star system it's in, alien and racial affiliations. It also boasts guilds and salvage and defeat guilds, salvage missions, and fleet defense missions. There was an Omega update, which shows a universe wide co op with missions and expeditions for new rewards. So, for that, like, total universal online gameplay, having those kind of large scale missions spanning the whole universe is kind of a cool concept. Echoes shows a robotic race with new technology and gameplay and introduces a pirate freighter with a highlight of large scale battles against humongous ships, which is pretty cool. There's a 7th anniversary trailer, which was basically. Now, I feel like this 7th anniversary trailer kind of sums up my thoughts that I'm going to get into a little bit later. Where. Oh, I was like, wait, where's that sound coming from? It's the thing. My mistake. But the 7th anniversary trailer is basically like. It's a mashup of very fast cut edits of older trailers and older gameplay in a quick succession of here's what the game series here's what the game has been so far before we continue on. And honestly, I feel like most of the trailers kind of get into this trailer is basically what I think they could have truncated a lot of the older trailers to, because it shows the progress that the game has made so far. And honestly, going down this list, it is really kind of getting into my brain that, like, they probably kept too many of the trailers here. After that, we get to Singularity, which is a bit of the same. I've seen things narration we've heard from the Curse trailer. Player characters are showing a droid type race, so I'm guessing the robot race up from the one of the later trailers, or earlier that we've talked about, but it's a later one chronologically. Um, it's not the first robot race. Not much in the way of a deep dive, but there is some visual variety shown here. There was a Mac launch trailer for Apple computers. There's an Interceptor update for abandoned camps, capital ship battles against large spacecraft, which seems to be expanded on later with the that pirate freighter with the Echoes expansion. Fractal showcases the virtual reality update, the VR update, plus an introduction of speeders for on planet exploration and different robotic companions of various sizes. Waypoint, the 4.0 update, has custom game modes to adjust game modes for survival, combat, and other things with new collections and content. They also updated inventory, level cap increases. Apparently, levels are a thing, and quality of life updates. So, with that, we don't see a whole lot of menus going on through the trailers and the screenshots. But considering that they did tell us here that they that those menus and systems were updated, it's like, okay, maybe I don't necessarily need to see a huge breakdown of all of them. The little bit that we do see is at least enough to kind of get an idea of what we're looking at. The endurance update improves hangars, freighters, the bridge. Sounds like mostly managing a space station. Uh, for as kind of a central hub for your exploration, complete with a crew who live and work on your station. Now, whether or not it's your personal station, I'm not entirely clear, but it does give us quite a bit of stuff to see and to look at there. There's a Leviathan trailer that shows a holy shit moment with a flying jellyfish that just pops into the planet's atmosphere. Plus, some little hint at some memory mechanics that flash across the screen, and what looks like an alien style ship infestation, which we do see some of those infestations in the later trailers, which are chronologically the earlier trailers. And there appears to be, so it appears that there's some kind of like loop mechanic tied to death and rebirth, which for all I know may have been part of the base game. It's just I'm not as versed in No Man's Sky, so I'm not up to speed on all of that. Outlaws expansions shows space station run by an absolute hive of scum and villainy, plus new solar ship and missions as well. Squadrons and bounty missions coming on. The Sentinel update has new companion drones and mech suits, camouflage mechanics, and weapon effects. The Emergence expedition, not Emergency, but Emergence Expedition, is presented as broken footage of a sandworm like creature bursting through the ground and just causing all kinds of mayhem. So it's basically like a horror movie, like Tremors, but maybe less of the comedic spin. There's Frontiers with planetary settlements and new base features, large size companions and base building. Prisms is showing new cave biomes with unique lighting, flying mounts, and some light and wet surface updates for textures. Some star effects, texture, and particle effects get updated. Expeditions showcases a jetpack, added game mode to start players on a single planet before having them leave to the rest of the galaxy, and community rewards and mission patches for completing expeditions. We do see in many of the other trailers, they talk about expeditions in a way that make them sound kind of temporary. In fact, the Mass Effect one was one of the ones that was boasted about as a mission where I think unlocking the thing may have been a limited time mission kind of thing, or a limited time expedition. It does give the kind of feeling that late adopters in the game could have some serious FOMO for missing out on those opportunities, especially if later seasons lock out old content, or if you don't have the option to like go and play an expedition from the start and then just kind of use that as a jumping off point. And then, when you boot up the game or boot up a save or a character, be able to select an expedition to start from. And does it seems like it might kind of favor more for the seasonal thing where if you don't play that season, you don't get those bonus rewards, which hopefully those bonus rewards aren't anything like game breaking or changing, but just kind of like a neat little aesthetic thing that you earn for your account. Companions shows domesticating wildlife for pets. Another option to complete the Pokedex. Update. There's an update boasting frame rate and multiplayer up to 32 players. Faster load times, showing a significant difference of progression compared to earlier trailers in the list. So this one, between the companions and the Desolation trailers, they show like the game really starts to look older at that point. Now, again, this isn't a bad thing, although I feel like a lot of these later trailers they really get summed up in that 7th anniversary trailer, where if all the rest of these got dropped off of the Steam page, I wouldn't really feel like a whole lot was lost, considering that it's cool to see where the game came from, but to have all of these trailers crowding and flooding the store page, it's a lot to digest as we're going down here. Then there was the Origins trailer, the Desolation trailer, which looks like another instance of abandoned and infested ships, but less polished than they were in one of the other trailers. So it does get expanded on later. Exomech seems to be an introduction of the mech suit that we see in so many other trailers, where you get to walk around, and quite frankly, it's maybe not the most efficient way to get around, but seriously, everybody loves giant robots, so all hail the Exomechs. Living ship, again, with what I've seen from the narration, it's showcasing organic ships this time around, which is a pretty cool concept for this sort of huge universe to explore. And honestly, if given the option, I would probably exclusively fly living spaceships just for the aesthetic. Beyond, okay, now with Beyond is where we really start to see like those early criticisms that said the game looked kind of bland and samey from planet to planet. I could see, even just from here onward, where they get that idea from, because before they added all the extra creatures and biomes, it does start to look that way. And again, it's kind of cool to see that progression. And for once, I'm kind of actually glad that they did not that they did not put the earliest trailers at the front of the Steam page, because honestly, if they did that, it would be like kind of like seeing it would be like trying to see a trailer for like Final Fantasy 15. Or like you're trying to decide if you want to buy Final Fantasy 15, but you're watching a trailer for Final Fantasy 4, which it's a night and day difference for how the game looks from its recent trailers to these oldest ones. Next shows some of the underwater swimming and multiplayer gameplay. Vision is showing a bit more of the visual variety from its initial launch, at least. It really looks dated from that point. And the Abyss update shows some early improvements to the underwater exploration and decoration, complete with storylines about the biomes and hidden alien treasures in there. And then there's a couple other things that are just even more old trailers. Honestly, the idea that I'm getting from the trailers here, if I am being 100% honest, is that they need to be cut down and truncated. If they got rid of all of the trailers up to the 7th anniversary trailer, I feel like that would be a good step as far as how the store page is presented, just because of the sheer quantity that is up here. like I said, I went and I counted, and there are 40. There are more than 40 trailers, ranging from mostly 1 to 2 minutes, with a couple of them around the 5 to 6 minute mark with the deep dives. And honestly, that feels like way too much. Even even if they did like an annual update trailer, I still feel like that would be too much, because that would be 10 trailers when one video showcase in here was that 7th anniversary update. So this is going to kind of weigh into our rating for the store page as we get down there. Um, and like I said earlier, we're going to be skipping through the screenshots because it is a crap ton of screenshots that are better shown in the trailers than it is in still images. So to analyze the game, the graphics, honestly, the graphics do look spectacular, especially in their modern iteration from those more recent trailers. I know as these images are flashing on screen here, it's going to look less and less flashy like that because of how the trailers are organized. I could see maybe they could have done a better showcase of the graphics if they were to compile like maybe the first 5 years, and then like have that 7th anniversary trailer, and then like a couple of annual update trailers that show the graphical enhancements since then. um as just kind of a way to truncate what they have there, because as a consumer I don't necessarily want to sit through 2 hours of showcase just to see how far the game has come. I would want to be interested in what the game has to show today. But at the very least, it does look graphically amazing and incredible. And I do really respect the direction they went with here, with their open world, their textures, their environments, the creatures. Everything looks by now, everything does look incredible. I know, like I said earlier, we did go into a little bit of the history and the breakdown of how the game had its rocky start, but with how far they've come since then, in 10 years of continuous dedication to their game, to their product, to their players, it's frankly incredible, and it looks like they do actually have a lot to explore. Sound wise, the soundtrack does have a bit of that like ambient feel to it. It doesn't seem like anything that would be like major, like not big character theme tracks or anything like that. But the soundtrack that we do hear in the trailers does appear to give some ambience. And just as a quick peek, is there a yeah, no, I don't see a DLC for the soundtrack, but it does, like the little bit of music that I've heard in the trailers does seem like something that I wouldn't mind having on in the background. It is the kind of thing that, again, it's just that ambient background audio to kind of set the tone and set the vibe. Gameplay, we do see a huge amount of the gameplay, especially with the little bits where they have a little bit of developer narration, a little bit of just flash in the pan moments where you see the ships, all so many different kinds of ships, so many different kinds of exploration and combat and creatures. You see friendly creatures, you see hostiles, you see different environments, weather, sh- ship to ship combat, ship to ground combat. You see so much going on through everything that it I would hope that the gameplay, even if not exactly quote unquote balanced, so to speak, for like obviously you don't want to necessarily be running on the ground and have your combat capabilities perfectly balanced against a huge freight ship that is just laser cannoning the surface of a planet. There's not going to be a balance for that to set the tone you want. But the way you can get to your ship, go and fly those ships. It does look like it creates for some exciting gameplay moments. And then even the more relaxed gameplay, the settlements where we do see some of the menus, even the space stations, the shops, maybe some diplomacy between factions. There, I do see potential in there, even where they don't go and expose a whole lot of the intricate detail of it. It does leave me at least faithful that there is a lot to the game to discover, being that the game is about exploration of the worlds and the environment and the universe and its interactions all together. The UI and menus, like I was saying earlier, we do see like tiny little snippets of a couple of them. They do look well enough. I would hope that I would hope they're intuitive enough to really get through. Um, I'd be kind of up in the air because I have seen games with absolute horrible inventory management and horrible menus. But considering that these developers came from some major studios and hopefully have a grasp on how to piece things together, especially with some of the trailers having said that they have overhauled those things and streamlined them, that we're not working with a 10-year-old inventory system. They have updated things since then. So a whole lot of work and passion, not only work, but like I said, the passion has gone into this game, and it's even showcased in these deep dives. The world's deep dives, you can just kind of you can hear the love for their game that they have in those deep dives. Now, let's get to the pricing. No Man's Sky at full price is $59.99, so $60. You got $60 for this. It is currently on sale for $24 on Steam. And maybe, maybe your PC is not beefy enough for it, or maybe you'd prefer a console release. I don't know about the other consoles, but I have checked the Nintendo Switch eShop, where it is available for Switch and the Switch 2. It's the same price, 60, or on sale for 24 currently at the time of this release. It says here the offer ends on June 8th, so if you're seeing this after that, maybe keep an eye out for another sale, but otherwise, this game, in its current iteration, absolutely looks like it's worth that $60 price tag. And if I know I say this a lot in these reviews, if I felt that I would have the time to pour into this, I would not hesitate on that $24 price tag based on what we see of it now. Now, I do have my criticisms for the store page, most of it hinging on the sheer quantity of trailers that I feel like they really need to truncate that to kind of shorten the length of everything and make it more digestible for a potential new buyer. But given that what I've seen here, even with that, like I can tell you right now, I'm not giving the store page a perfect score, but that is not for the fault of the game itself. The game itself looks like it is absolutely worth that. You can play it on VR. You can play it on just about any console or computer you can imagine. And for anybody that is into like the Subnautica, the Minecraft, Terraria, if you like those kinds of games of exploration and discovery and want to see it in this kind of large scale universe where there is lore and NPCs and missions and even limited time events thrown into that, I could see that being a huge value. And there's even extra bundle here. There's the Hello Games bundle where you get an even bigger discount for all of their games combined. You get Joe Danger 2 the movie, Joe Danger 2 Undead movie pack, DLC for that, and The Last Campfire all together for $26.59. So basically you're paying the $24 for No Man's Sky, and then 250, 260 for three other complete games. So honestly, the value that you have available to you right now is incredible for this. And based on everything that I've seen here, it does look like Hello Games earns that price tag. Now, I don't know if that necessarily translates to you, the viewer, earning your purchase, because everybody does have different tastes for games. Some people don't have the time to put into a game like this, that the game like this would kind of demand in order to get the full enjoyment from it. It doesn't look like it's the kind of game that really lends well to short play sessions. But if you are the kind of person where you could sit down for like a good 3, 4, 5 hour gaming session once in a while, then you could probably get some solid value out of this. Plus, those other games like The Last Campfire alone already looks good too. Even if I never looked into the other one, like if I just kind of peek real quick at that Last Campfire, I just wanted to take a quick peek. What is this one retailing at? Because this is another one, a nice little indie title that I have seen floating around currently for 150 on sale at 90% off, $15 full price, where this one looked like a cute puzzle game in its own regard. So it does give you a lot of value for that. And then the other couple of games on there, I don't know, maybe you never touch them. Maybe you just kind of pick them up once in a while when you have a few minutes to burn and you're bored, you want to see some silliness. Cool. But other than that, The Last Campfire and No Man's Sky together do look like an incredible value. Um, and I strongly respect the vision and the ambition that Hello Games put out there, and the fact that they did not abandon the game in the midst of such heavy criticism when it first launched in 2016. Because frankly, that could have been very disheartening to see. Not only did you not manage to complete your ambition for your project, for something you had so much passion for, but then to see people just tear into it so badly, especially with some issues that I think there happened with people getting early leaked copies or something, which affected some of the it affected some of the reception. I think it might have kind of poisoned the well of some people's thinking and understanding when it came out, despite its technical marvel that it was at the time. The fact that the developers seemed to set the expectations a little too high for what they had time to develop, it could have really just crushed them emotionally or financially and left them unable or unwilling to continue on. But the fact that they did continue for multiple updates every year since, not even like, oh, they made some updates over the next 5 years, and then the 5 years after that it's just the game is dead in the water. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't know. They are still updating this, just like some other major games out there. But absolutely, it does look incredible, and I think for all of those reasons, now the game itself, in my book, is getting a solid 10 for what the game looks like today, and with the respect for Hello Games. However, I do have to rate the store page for this. And I think because of the sheer quantity of trailers with no cut down of those trailers, I am going to have to bump my rating for the Steam store page of No Man's Sky down to a 6, because going through what I think was like more than 2 hours worth of trailers at this point, it did kind of take a bit out of me to go through all those notes, to go ahead and try and compile this and get into all this information. Now, I get that you want to have your trailers out there so that you can kind of have a timeline of how things progressed. But considering that the game has been out for 10 years and has had so many updates, I feel like there's some videography or there are ways you can showcase that progress without having it scattered across more than 40 videos. You can have those, keep those 40 videos up on the company YouTube channel or something like that, But for the sake of a store page on a marketplace, you want to shorten that vision down to maybe a few minutes per trailer, where again, take that 7th anniversary trailer, start with the 7th anniversary trailer, and then show like a separate trailer maybe for the next few years, because that's the game's it's almost 10 years. Show a 7th anniversary, an 8th anniversary, and a 9th anniversary trailer, and maybe keep the world part 1 and 2 deep dives, because those ones, I feel like even though those are longer trailers, if you keep those ones on the back, it still puts them there for the developer to have that emotional reach to the players or to potential buyers. Because honestly, those world's deep dive videos, I think, really do better. Like, they do a good job of selling the emotion behind the game and the passion from the developers that they have for it. The It's just the rest of it is so long and drawn out that I think you could have gone with the I know I keep saying the 7th update, the 7th anniversary trailer. If you maybe update that one to just start from the base game and then show flashes of how the game was updated each year from that point. You can dedicate 10 to 15 seconds per year of updates with the graphics and gameplay changes on each of those, and maybe a little, like, have those deep dives, maybe add one extra deep dive talking about some of the other mechanical changes. And then you have the Swarm update trailer, which was it gave very little information, but it did an excellent job of showing the visuals and the tone of the game. I just feel like there's a little bit you can do there to kind of make it more digestible for the viewer when they are looking at all of that. And I know when I say digestible, I'm probably a little hypocritical, because this video is almost an hour long as we're getting to this point. Now, again, that score of 6 out of 10 is for the Steam store page. My review for No Man's Sky, or my impression of No Man's Sky as a game, is a solid 10. And if I felt I had the time for this, I would absolutely be buying it right now at that $24 price tag. Because what was that, 60% off? That is an incredible value. And yes, there probably will be bigger sales for it, but I don't know when those will happen. I don't even know if they'll happen. I feel like if another sale like that were to happen, it would be some years down the line, maybe after they stop updating it because they put all their direction into Light No Fire. But the game does look like, even today, even for new players who would just jump in right now, there is still so much to appreciate and explore and just to love about the world, the graphics, the environments, the missions, the gameplay. It's like this. It's like the natural progression of a sandbox in a way. And it just looks like it really scratches that itch, where if I wasn't constantly bogging myself down with all these projects, with my shiny Pokemon hunt, my Recetier, where I need to go ahead and get my next loop recorded, I would absolutely see myself pouring hours upon hours into this. And frankly, my wife and I would probably both get sucked into this so hard if the opportunity was given itself. As it stands, we do have our little hyper fixations at the moment, but this is the kind of game that could absolutely become one of those hyper fixations, especially when you're online multiplayer, cross-platform, able to play with your friends no matter what console they're all playing on. So that's my impression of the game. That's my rating of the game. Absolutely great game. The store page needs a little refining, I feel like. But if I had the time to go and sink into this, I would absolutely be buying it right now the minute I click stop recording. That's not to say that I'm telling everyone else to go and buy it, because that is a decision that every single person needs to make for themselves based on what they like about games. It's just that this is absolutely the kind of game that I could get sucked into, and if you're that kind of person where you love the exploration, whether you're a hardcore like end game content grinder or not, it looks like it looks like the game offers plenty to appreciate for whatever kind of play style you would like with that. If this kind of world and environment, and maybe like it does look like there are concrete goals in the game, but you can chase or ignore those goals as much as you want for whatever you want out of the game. Now, remember, these are all opinions. This is just me spouting off from my soapbox. I don't have any kind of like formal credentials or training when it comes to reviewing games. I am flying by the seat of my pants and have very little idea of what I'm talking about. I do very minimal research into these. So, take my thoughts with a grain of salt, or if you agree or disagree, we got comments down there. I do love seeing what other people think, whether they are differing opinions. If people think I'm full of shit, go ahead and leave a comment down there. If you agree, or if you have played this and have your own impressions to add, depending on how early or late you bought into this massive undertaking of a game, I'd like to know y'all's thoughts too. So let me know what you guys think. I'd like to get some impressions out there. We will be coming back next weekend with some other reviews. I haven't quite picked a theme yet, but I am looking into some things to see where we're going to be going with our judging by the cover. I am, you know what? I am glad that I put off for doing this one at the end of Space Month, because honestly, I don't know what I could possibly review that would look like it would top this.